Good evening again, friends. We prayed, and now it is time to continue in our reading of 1 Samuel. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for reading with us. Please to take a moment to post a greeting, share a comment. Let us know that you're here with us. I encourage you to hit that like button. If you've not done so yet, subscribe to the channel. And feel free to share this with anyone that you think might benefit from this. So, let's start as we always do by taking a look at the big picture. Yes, 1st and 2nd Samuel together because you've heard me say this how many times now? These were originally one book. They've been long since separated, and we treat them as two. And here we are reading 1st Samuel. So let's focus in on that. Tonight, we resume our reading in the early stages of chapter 18. Verse 6, actually, is where we're going to be starting. And so far in this chapter, the significant thing that has happened, David and Jonathan have encountered one another, and David and Jonathan have been bound to one another. We don't really know what that means, but it's clear it means something of great significance. So, yes, here we are. Chapter 18. And this is a very interesting point because David is now officially a major player in the life of Israel, and Saul is too. And there will start to be a comparison, and that comparison will cause conflict, strife, hatred. And all because David is on the rise and Saul is not, because Saul has been rejected by God because of his disobedience. David has been chosen to be the replacement for Saul. Doesn't happen immediately, takes some time, but it does happen, and it is happening as we read. Good evening, Linda. Chapter 18, verse 6. There's the reading windows. Pull up our timer. We've got the Complete Jewish Bible in the left-hand column. That is primarily what I will be reading. The right-hand column has the New Revised Standard Version Updated Edition. I will use that to explain some things from time to time that may need to be explained, primarily, almost exclusively from the left-hand column, with the right-hand column as a silent comparison. There are moments when it is important, especially when dealing with Jewish biblical language and being Christians, that we take a moment to understand what it is that we're reading when it doesn't sound the same. David is David. No real need to explain there. But Shaul, that's Saul, Johannatan is Jonathan. And there are other things like that that arise. And we'll make mention of that when those come up the first time. But for now, yes, Shaul is Saul, and Johannatan is Saul's son, Jonathan. Let's read, beginning with verse 6, which means I need to scroll down. Oh, Plishti. Plishti, why, that's the Philistines. David is where we left off when we read here last. David is becoming a military successor. He's being victorious in battle. And where we pick up here, oh, look, that's getting noticed. Verse 6. As David and the others were returning from the slaughter of the Plishti, the women came out of all the cities of Israel to meet King Shaul, singing and dancing joyfully with tambourines and three-stringed instruments. In their merrymaking, the women sang, Shaul has killed his thousands, but David his tens of thousands. Shaul became very angry because this song displeased him. He said, they give David credit for tens of thousands, but me they give credit for only thousands. Now all he lacks is the kingdom. From that day on, Shaul viewed David with suspicion. The following day, an evil spirit from God came powerfully over Shaul, so that he fell into a frenzy in the house. David was there playing his lyre as on other occasions. This time Shaul had his spear in his hand, and he threw the spear, thinking, I will pin David to the wall. But David dodged out of the way twice. Shaul became afraid of David because Adonai was with him and had left Shaul. Therefore Shaul put him at a distance from himself, by making him commander over 1,000. His goings and comings became public knowledge. David had great success in all his ways. Adonai was with him. When Shaul saw how very successful he was, he became afraid of him. But all Israel and Yehuda, Judah, loved David because they knew about all his campaigns. Shaul said to David, here is my older daughter, Merab. I will give her to you as a wife, only continue displaying your courage for me and fight Adonai's battles. Shaul was thinking, I don't dare touch him. So let the Plishtim do away with him. David's response to Shaul was, who am I that I should become the king's son-in-law? I don't have any kind of a life, and my father's family has no rank in Israel. However, when it was time for Merab, Shaul's daughter, to be given to David, she was given to Adriel the Mecholati. Adriel the Meholathite. But Michal, Shaul's daughter, Michal, Saul's daughter, fell in love with David. They told Shaul, and it pleased him. Shaul said, I'll give her to him so that she can entrap him, and the Plishtim can do away with him. So Shaul said to David, Today you will become my son-in-law through the second daughter. Shaul ordered his servants to speak privately with David and say, Look, the king is pleased with you. And all his servants like you. So become the king's son-in-law. Shaul's servants said this to David. But David replied, Do you think being the king's son-in-law is something to be treated so casually, given that I am a poor man without social standing? So Shaul's servants reported back to him how David had responded. Shaul said, Here's what you are to say to David. The king doesn't want any dowry. He wants 100 foreskins of the Plishtim, so that he can have vengeance on the king's enemies. For Shaul was hoping to have David killed by the Plishtim. When his servant said these words to David, it pleased David to become the king's son-in-law, even before the time for him to be married. David got up and set out, he and his men, and killed 200 men of the Plishtim. He brought their foreskins and gave all of them to the king in order to become the king's son-in-law. Then Shaul gave him Michal, his daughter, as his wife. Shaul saw and understood that Adonai was with David, and that Michal, Shaul's daughter, loved him. This only made Shaul the more afraid of David, so that Shaul became David's enemy for the rest of his life. Then the leaders of the Plishtim would attack. But whenever they attacked, David was more successful than any of Shaul's servants, so that David acquired a great reputation. Shaul told Jonathan, his son, and all his servants that they should have David killed. But because Jonathan was very fond of David, he told him, My father Shaul is out to have you killed. Therefore you must be very cautious tomorrow morning. Find a well-concealed place to hide in. I will go out and stand next to my father in the countryside where you're hiding. I will talk with my father about you, and if I learn anything, I'll tell you. Jonathan spoke well of David to Shaul his father and said to him, The king shouldn't sin against his servant David, because he hasn't sinned against you. On the contrary, his work for you has been very good indeed. He has put his life in his hands to attack the Plishtim, and Adonai accomplished a great victory for all Israel. You yourself saw it, and you were happy about it. So why do you want to sin against innocent blood by killing David without any reason? Shaul heeded Jonathan's advice and swore, As Adonai lives, he will not be put to death. Jonathan called David and told him all these things. Then Jehonatan brought David to Shaul to be in attendance on the king, as before. And that, friends, is where we're going to pause, and next time that we pick up 1 Samuel, we will resume at chapter 19, verse 8. Peace be with you, dear friends.